Hello and welcome to GameRomp Easy Mode. It's your chill gaming podcast where my wife and I talk about, you guessed it, video games.
Who'da thunk it?
I'm David.
I'm Deanna.
And this is another week of this.
You sound so excited.
Well, I don't know. I guess we haven't really been playing too much. Well, no, wait, that's not true. You've been playing something new. I've been playing a couple things off and on.
How many things do you have to talk about? Because I have the one, so...
Well, there was also that Sony show last week.
How much of it do you remember?
There's only like 2 games that I think I care about. Well, maybe... only just 2. I was going to say maybe 3, but... Okay, so I guess for me, the biggest things were Monster Hunter.
Of course.
And, of course, it looks really good. What else is there to say? Monster Hunter looks good, and I'm sad I'm not going to be playing it for a while. Even though it comes out this month.
The thing with the Monster Hunter reveal was more that they revealed their first, free DLC or update or what have you.
No, they revealed a bunch of new stuff, like some new monsters, returning monsters, and just seeing everything was great.
Oh, okay. I guess I just remember that one part then.
Yeah, that's because you ran off when it came on.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, it's okay. You're not a Monster Hunter person, and...
Nope.
I don't know. It's not like I'm going to be playing it anyways, but it is cool to see which monsters are returning, and I'll look forward to it one day, whenever that may be.
Now, you're not going to be able to play it on your own, but are you going to watch someone else play it?
No.
You're going to try and keep it down?
Monster Hunter is a game where you can just play for hundreds of hours. I could easily put in more than 100 hours, and I'm not going to watch somebody on YouTube do that. Besides, the joy of Monster Hunter is not the story. It's not to see what happens next. It's just, the progression. There is part of the joy of, ooh, what's this new monster? And learning about it and everything like that. But I kind of don't want to get that spoiled too much. I know some of the new monsters, but I don't know how to fight them or everything that they do in their fights.
That's fair.
And
so this is not a game that you would want to watch other people play?
No, not really. For me, the biggest thing is, like I said, just playing it and finding the new monsters, and after you beat them, going home and seeing what you can make. The armors especially. It's always fun to just ooh, what does his armor look like? What do the weapons look like?
How often do you get disappointed by how the armors look? Is it half the time? Is it just the leggings in specific?
It depends. Okay, in the old games, in World and in Rise, I could just mod it. I could edit whatever I wanted it to make it look better. But now every time you beat a monster, it's going to be 2 different armor sets. Because you can create both the quote-unquote male version and female version for any character. I guess it's more like the traditional... You know what? I don't want to go into that because when there are going to be so many new monsters, it's hard to say what their stuff is going to look like anyway, so I don't want to speculate.
Okay.
And it's just going to be a fun thing to go into to find out what new outfits you can make. Because Fashion Hunter has always been a big part of it. Ooh, make a cool outfit. And that's always fun in games like that, or even in Dark Souls.
I guess. I was just thinking, for what games I've played through, I remember back when we used to play WoW that we would look at, say, the new armor that would come out, not for the stats, but just how they looked. Because it was an old stereotype of WoW of oh, you get all these high-ranking armor piece sets and you put them all together and you just look like a mess. Because one piece looks like this, another piece looks like bright orange or something. It was always a mess. I didn't know if Monster Hunter was similar or not.
You can look like a mess in Monster Hunter if you make a mixed set, but you could also just not do that. The way I like to play, especially early on before you get the transmog or layered armor, which is basically what did they call it in WoW? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the cosmetic overlay, I guess.
Yeah, you can do that in Monster Hunter as well.
Oh, okay.
But even before you unlock that, I kind of like building an armor that looks good and then just rolling with that, even if it's not the most optimal, because it's not the game is super hard in the beginning anyways. So it's kind of cool to be oh, this armor has this. I like it because it looks cool, but it's also going to make me try maybe a new play style. Like, ooh, this armor is geared towards bow use or the gun lance. So I was like, ooh, maybe I'll try that because it looks cool.
So you'd go for an outfit over a weapon type.
Yeah, because I play multiple weapons anyways. There's some certain type of Monster Hunter players where they just pick one weapon and they just main it and only play that, and that's, to me, that's bizarre. Because like the game is giving you like, I think there's like 15 or 16 weapons, and each one is like a pretty different play style. Well, maybe except for the bowgun. The bowgun and the light bowgun and heavy bowgun are, it's just one is faster, one is slower. And the slower one has more ammo and stuff and heavier explosions. But like all the other weapons are very different from each other. So it's like, imagine buying Street Fighter or a fighting game that has like 15 characters and then you only play as like Blanca for like 100 hours. I don't get that. I would want to experience more than just, one aspect of the game.
That's fair. But then like I say that, and maybe it's not to the same extent, but when I played Skyrim, I admit I would tend to default to like bows and assassin or thief.
Yeah, well,
whatever.
I mean, Skyrim's combat is ridiculously simple anyway, so
I suppose.
And it's like melee combat is very floaty and not good, to be honest with you.
No, that's definitely true, because I needed mods to make it not suck. Anyways, okay, so you like trying different weapons. Is there a favorite weapon that you have, and also a least favorite weapon you have?
I think my favorite, the one I use the most, tends to be the dual blades, which is like the two short swords. I guess if I had to pick a least favorite, it would probably be regular lance.
Is that like
the lance and shield?
Oh.
Because like there's also gun lance, and gun lance is just, I mean, it's not the same exactly, but you still got the big shield and you still got the big lance, except now your lance can make explosions. So that's more fun. So whenever I want to play like a heavy shield character, I just use gun lance. I don't really play the charge blade. I know a lot of people like the charge blade, but for me it's just...
What's a charge blade?
This is a weapon that they introduced in Monster Hunter 4. It's basically like a sword and shield, but they can put the sword inside the shield and it turns into like this big axe thing. And you have to like charge veils and you can make like a bunch of discharges and explosions and stuff with it, but...
Weird.
I don't know. I never really got into that.
I guess I would have to see what these weapons actually look like just out of pure curiosity someday.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy weapons like that. Like another one that's kind of like that is the switch axe, which is like it starts as an axe and you use it a bunch and it charges like kinetic energy, and then you can like switch it into sword mode where it like unleashes all that energy into like elemental explosions or status effects and stuff.
I mean, I guess after so many weapons, when you start making like 10 to 15 different weapons, you gotta come up with some crazy ass ideas.
There are some weird ones, yeah. Like the insect glaive is another one. The insect glaive is like, imagine you have this long spear, but it's also tied to, for some reason, a bug. So you use the bug to like, it's almost like a pet where you can tell it where to hit the monsters and it'll go hit the monsters.
What the fuck?
And it'll extract essences from them that you can use for buffs. And the lance in that, it's a glaive, whatever, it's basically like a spear, is very vaulty. Like you can vault with it and jump in the air and stuff. So it's a very aerial weapon. But sometimes I wish I could just use that without having to deal with the bug. Because I don't really like the bug mechanic. Because every so often you're like, oh, I gotta re-up my buffs. And I don't know, that's kind of annoying. I did use that a lot in Monster Hunter World, though. Anyway, I could keep talking about the weapons forever, but Monster Hunter is really fun, and I will play it one day, and I forget why we started talking about weapons.
Well, we can talk about the other game you saw.
I guess there's two more. The other big one that I was interested in was Onimusha.
Okay, yeah.
Because, Onimusha is a game from the PS2 era, and it was basically, back in the day, we kind of looked at it as like, oh, it's Resident Evil, but with samurai. but it was like very melee combat focused. And back in those days, this is before Dark Souls, there wasn't a lot of games that had like really good melee combat. And I remember just how satisfying that felt back then in Onimusha. So it'd be interesting to see how they modernized it now that there's a lot of competition in that field.
Yeah, really, geez. But they still have that vaguely interesting mechanic where he like sucks in the souls or something, or is it just the souls?
Yeah, because like a lot of games do that nowadays, right? Like Dark Souls, you get souls every time you beat an enemy. But in Onimusha, it was kind of a mix where like a strategic thing where after you beat an enemy, yeah, there'd be souls, but you have to actually stop and use your gauntlet thing to like suck them into that. Because he's got like this gauntlet that like uses the souls to power up or whatever. And it can be used kind of in the same way where you get a bunch of souls to level up certain weapons or whatever. But sometimes some of the souls that appear are just like health up or mana up. So it's kind of like...
Yeah, they had different colors to them, right?
Yeah. So you have to like, when you're in a fight, like, are you safe to suck in this XP and maybe get some HP back too if there's any like health restoring ones there?
Or are you going to get your ass kicked while you're just standing there like a dum-dum?
Or are you just going to keep fighting and like maybe some of those souls are going to fade away or something? So there's that interesting like mix where it can be kind of hectic and fun. Looks like they're re-releasing or remastering Onimusha 2, which is cool because I think that Onimusha 2 is like probably my fave of the three. Onimusha 1 and Onimusha 2 are really, really good. I mean, Onimusha 3 is good too, but I think the first two are stronger. I think Onimusha 2 was my favorite because it had this system where like it was kind of hard to judge what was triggering this, but like you would get to play as other characters too, and there was like a town where you would go and you get to talk to them, and depending on how you interact with them, like you might have to control them later on in the story. But there was like 3 other characters you could play as. Was it 3 or 4? I don't know. It made for like a lot of good replay value. Or it's like, oh, this time I'm going to try to befriend this guy so I can see his stage and like play as him or whatever. So yeah, Onimusha 2 is really good. And also it had like one of the rival nemesis characters you fought was like this weird alien. Well, alien? They're Oni. They're Japanese demon things. Yeah. But they're kind of alien looking. And one of them was like another swordsman, and like the duels you would have with him were so good. At
like
least
very strategic.
At least back in the day, like in the judging by PS2 game standards. So maybe if I went back and played it today, I'd be like, oh, this is kind of clunky. But
so there's 3 past Onimushas. They're making a 4th one, right? Or are they just remastering a couple of them?
No, 2 is getting like a slight remaster. It's not like getting huge changes, but I guess, unlike Square, they seem to have kept their HD backgrounds and like they can, I don't know if they just upscaled them or if they have the RAWs, but like now it's in HD and it looks good. Whereas if you play like Final Fantasy IX, like they had great backgrounds in that game, but when they released it on modern consoles, it's like, oh, these are just standard definition and they look like shit now. But at least Capcom doesn't do that. They've I don't know if they've upscaled them or if they just have the RAWs from back then, but it looks really good. That's the only one that I saw that they're re-releasing, or at least in this remastered format.
Do you think it's weird that they would re-release or remaster only one of them and not the other 2?
I don't know if they've already done that with Onimusha 1. It is kind of weird if they just skipped 1, but I'm also not too upset about it because 2 is probably my favorite one anyways. And it's not like the stories are all super connected or anything. Or are they? I don't think they were. Because in 2 you play as somebody completely different. I don't remember if in 3 the samurai dude you play is the same as in the first one or not. The thing about these old games too is like they really liked having like famous actors in them. And for like the first 2, it's like, Japanese movie stars that I don't know. But the third one had it was like a duo, I guess, dual stars or whatever you want to say. And one of them was, again, another Japanese actor. But they paired him with, I don't know the guy's name. But you know that movie with Natalie Portman and like, what is it called? Like Luke something the Hitman or something? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm afraid not.
Jock the Hitman. It's like Natalie Portman is like, I think 13 or something in that movie.
Jeez.
And it's that actor. I don't remember his name.
Okay.
But, you know, if you're listening to this and you know what movie I'm talking about, that guy is in Onimusha 3.
Interesting.
Yeah, so he's like the gun wielder, and then like you have to switch between him and the samurai dude, and it was okay, but I think I prefer 2. Anyway, all that said, they're also making a new one, and the new one they released a trailer for. It looks, I mean, it's just a trailer, so, you know, we'll see what happens, but it looks really good. And they also have a bit of humor in it. Like, it's not taking itself too seriously, which is also another thing I know I've said that I really like.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see. Again, who knows when I'll be able to play it. We both gotta upgrade our PCs. For one thing, this is gonna be a side tangent, but apparently Windows is gonna stop supporting Windows 10 this year.
Yeah, well, I really don't care for upgrading to Windows 11.
Yeah, but this is like security stuff, so...
I feel like there's enough people that don't want to upgrade to Windows 11 that, I don't know, maybe there will be people that keep up like a security thing on their own or something.
I guess we'll see. Anyway, the last game of that show that I really should have taken note of it because I don't remember the name. It was this Souls-like game set in like a post-apocalyptic UK.
The only other Souls-like game I remember is like Lies of P or something.
Oh yeah, they had a DLC for that too, and I mean that looked kind of neat too, but I haven't played the base game, so I can't say
But doesn't Bloodborne kind of feel like an old school style of the UK?
I mean,
or is this one supposed to be more modernish?
Bloodborne is a fantasy place, whereas this is just straight up the UK.
I mean, yeah, I guess maybe Victorian is the right word for it. It feels...
Yeah, that was Bloodborne.
Like
it was inspired by that kind of aesthetic. But this is literally the UK. You'll see like the flags and stuff everywhere. It's...
Yeah, 'cause is this the trailer or something that they showed and it had like the big London wheel or something?
Yeah, and there was like this big Colossus looking monster, and you were like, oh, this looks like Shadow of the Colossus, but it's actually more like a Souls-like game, an action game, with like big focus on exploration and bosses and stuff. It looks like in that game you control this lady, and she uses like these summon things. Like she'll have these I don't know if they're spirits or whatever, but like when I was watching gameplay of it, she would like summon this armored bow guy and then like this armored swords guy, and like you can use them as weapons and you can use them to like place them on the battlefield to fight with them, but then you also like are, you know, dodging around and using your sword. I don't know, it looks really cool.
I guess I literally don't remember anything other than the giant wheel, so...
Wow. Well, whatever. It's fine.
I was only half paying attention to this stuff, so...
Yeah, I've kind of figured there wasn't going to be much in this trailer for you.
No.
Or in the presentation. I don't know if there was anything you felt excited about during the whole thing.
I usually don't.
But I think that was it for me too. It wasn't like a super amazing show with a bunch of stuff that I was excited about. Like 2 games I already knew I kind of was excited about, and one that was kind of a neat surprise that I was like, oh, that looks kind of fun. But other than that, it's like, whatever. I don't know. We are in February, so it's just a few more months until June where we get a bunch of these shows. I think there's going to be a Nintendo thing soon too.
Was that supposed to be for March or April?
I don't know. We're almost in March though, so time marches on. We'll be there soon.
It's kind of fucked up when you think about it.
And we'll get to see what the Switch 2 is and maybe some more game info.
I mean, I'm assuming the Switch 2 is just a Switch, but like more powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm like super excited about it. I don't really care, to be honest. I just want to play Nintendo games on my PC. I guess we'll see how powerful the Switch 2 is, but even so, I would still rather play those games on my PC because mods. Oh, here's one thing we could talk about before we move on to your game.
Okay.
Because you kind of played it too.
Really?
I decided it would be interesting to test a theory.
Oh, this thing.
Yeah. So I have been playing and talking about Mega Man for past few episodes, I guess. And I know in a few of them I was like, oh, some people it's kind of a toss-up between Mega Man 2 and Mega Man 3 as being their favorites. And after I played through Mega Man 3, I realized that it was a lot harder than Mega Man 2. And not only that, but like Mega Man 2 also had the difficulty settings that you could choose, which is like I think the only Mega Man game that has that. So I thought maybe a reason so many people love Mega Man 2 more is because they just played it on the easy mode and it was just a kind of a fun, breezy little game that you didn't have to worry too much about. Whereas in Mega Man 3 especially has a lot of hard moments in it. It's funny, Mega Man 3, I guess it gets hard in the middle and then like at the end of the game it gets easy.
I'm assuming because you have all the boss power-ups and stuff.
Well, maybe some of that, but I feel like the Doc Robot stages in the middle are harder than Wily's stuff at the end. Whereas Mega Man 2, it's not too hard throughout, especially if you're playing it on the easy mode. But I don't know, maybe that's just me as a Mega Man,
enthusiast.
Yeah, who played through all of them. Like I've heard. I remember when Mega Man 9 came out and people were like, this is so hard like the old games. And yeah, it was hard and it felt so good. Just slowly struggling through all the new stages that I've never seen and like getting to terms with everything and finally beating it. It was just so good. And it's satisfying in the way that I guess some people see Dark Souls as being satisfying. And then Mega Man 10 came out and I felt that all over again. Again, the stages were hard and you had to learn them and run into a lot of game overs, but that's part of the fun. Like you get better at the stages slowly and then you beat the stage or get to the boss and the boss beats you and you're like, well, at least I got to the boss, I'll go try another stage, and like slowly working your way through this game. A game that would probably take like 2 to 3 hours to beat, but like because you have to master to beat it that fast, like your first playthrough is going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah. Well, they had to like artificially elongate the gameplay anyways.
Well, I wouldn't say Mega Man is guilty of that actually, because the games are hard but fair, in my opinion, most of the time.
Well, I'm not saying they're like as bad as an arcade game where it's like designed to just destroy you, so you have to keep putting in more coins. But in order to justify, how much would you pay for those games when they first came out? Like $40, $50?
Yeah.
So if it was like a 2-hour game, but they can make it hard, but not too hard so that it lasts like maybe double or triple the time, it feels more justified in paying $50 for it.
Yeah, I think they were more worried about like the USA rental market, but the thing about Mega Man games that makes them not guilty of that, they give you passwords. Well, except for Mega Man 1, but every other Mega Man game, like, you can just slam your head into the game for hours, and if you beat a boss, you've made progress. You got a password. You don't have to do that again. But like some other games, like another game I was kind of considering playing again, Little Nemo, the Dream Master. That game is really good, and it's also a Capcom game, but there is no passwords. You have to kind of beat it all in one go.
Yikes.
And some of those games have limited continues too, so that's what's so hard. It's like, well, now I got to start all over. Whereas Mega Man, you don't really have to do that. Until you get to the Wily stages, I guess, you kind of have to do those all in one go. But that's usually like 4 stages. That ain't too bad. So yeah, I don't think Mega Man's guilty of that, honestly. But it's funny, again, going back to Mega Man 10, I ran into that where it's like, oh, this game is so hard. And like, just slowly getting used to it and beating all the bosses, and it felt so satisfying, and I loved it. But then I remember reading reviews back then where people were like, Mega Man 10 is too hard. Capcom is just trolling us now. I was like, it wasn't any harder than Mega Man 9. And like, for a new player, Mega Man 2 or Mega Man 3, those were also hard. So I think there's just something in people where sometimes they're, this is going to sound elitist or something, and I don't mean it that way, but they're not really up for the challenge, I guess.
I mean, we could kind of see that in the experiment we did.
Yeah. So that made me wonder, like, okay, maybe Mega Man 2 is so much more beloved than the others because there's a mode you could play where it's ridiculously easy.
Which is funny because that mode is literally just called normal.
Yeah, but in Mega Man 2 for the US, they have normal mode and I think they call it difficult mode or something like that.
Oh, I thought it was just hard.
No. But the thing is, the normal mode is not actually the normal mode. That's an easy mode they made for the US audiences. Because in the Japanese version doesn't even have that.
Is it kind of like how Mario came over here using the Doki Doki game template? Because the Mario game was too hard, supposedly.
That's a kind of whole other thing. Because Mario 2, the Japanese Mario 2 is just basically Mario 1 with hard levels. And yeah, it wasn't great. Even in Japan, people were like, this is too hard. So we ended up getting a better game, an all-new game. Whereas Mega Man 2 is just, it got tweaked a little bit.
Okay.
So like some of the enemies will die faster and they won't have like their second forms or something. Like, and some of the bosses just, they take more damage. It's funny because like sometimes a boss will just be killed in one hit if you use the right weapon. Whereas that's not really how it worked in the original mode. I mean, granted, maybe 2 hits, but still, like, you would do double damage. And when you're using your little rapid-fire pea shooter, like, double damage is a big deal. Like, I think the bosses die a lot faster. So, anyways, I thought, well, with all that in mind, maybe I'll ask Deanna to play Mega Man 2, and we'll put it on the easy mode and see how well she does, but...
Uh-oh.
You hated it. You didn't even get to any of the bosses before you're like, fuck this game.
I don't know. Maybe it would have been different when I was a kid or something and you could argue
nothing else to do.
Yeah. It's like I have other games that I could technically be playing, and even if I want to play those games, I'm still finding it hard to get myself to play those games. So like, if I'm not doing well enough, like I'm getting like 5 screens in and just dying constantly because that's how this game is kind of designed to work, why am I wasting my time playing this? And like, okay, fine, I have the thing where I get frustrated easily, we know this, and this game is designed to do that. So like, it's not a surprise that I'm just not up to playing this.
I don't think it's designed to frustrate. I think it's just, it has a base level challenge. But I also noticed too that there was a point where you were just using the controller in a way that I thought was kind of awkward. And then we kind of fixed it, but...
I tried doing the way you showed me, but like, maybe it's just easier for you because your thumb is like bigger than mine. But I also just never really played game. I don't... Like, if I looked back to how I played platformers when I was a kid, I don't know if I played it like that and I just managed to get by, or...
You kind of had to, especially in the Mario games, because, like...
I didn't play Mario games.
Yeah. There's some games that don't require... Okay, we're speaking in a lot of vague things here, but okay. Imagine an NES controller in your mind. Or what we were using, a PS4 controller. A lot of games back then, they just had the A button and the B button. So you had 2 buttons you had to press. In some games like Kirby, you can get away with just pressing 1 or 2 at a time. It's fine.
See, and that's kind of what I grew up on.
In other games like Super Mario or Mega Man, you have to get used to being able to press both buttons. For example, in Super Mario, if you have to do a running jump, you have to hold down B to run, and then at the same time, press A to jump. So you can't like lift up your finger from one button to press the other one. You have to put your thumbs in the way where you can press both.
Yeah, I always...
Same for Mega Man in the sense that like if you're jumping and you need to shoot, you kind of have to press the jump button to jump up and then quickly be able to shoot. And if you lift your button from the jump button to press the shoot button, you might not be jumping all the way up in the air before you lift your thumb, so Mega Man won't get his full height. You kind of have to get into the rhythm of pressing the buttons where you can jump and unload all the shots at the same time.
Yes, and it's an absolute pain in the ass if you're not, like, already used to doing it like that.
It's just something you gotta get used to, yeah. I mean...
But let's be honest, okay, maybe I could get used to hitting the buttons like that. But you're gonna still have an advantage over me because your thumb is just longer.
I guess. I mean, I played these games as a kid when I had smaller fingers. And the A-B button positioning on the NES controller was not as ergonomic as it is on the DS, on the DualShock. Where the DualShock, you can place like the bottom of your thumb on one button and the tip of your thumb on the other button. Whereas
and it still hits.
Or on the NES, they were side by side, so you kind of like had to kind of hold it in a different way, and it wasn't the same. But like you still, again, would get used to how to do it, and it's just part of the game, I guess. Anyway, it doesn't matter. She didn't like the game.
Sorry, I'm not. It's just.
I ended up beating it real quick.
Oh yeah, I've. How long? Okay, I didn't play for long. Maybe like 10, 15 minutes. But then, like, you just took over and just decided to beat everything and finish the game anyways.
Yeah, because it's fun. And I wanted to, like, re-experience it and show you, like, some of the weird stuff in the later game. Or, like, how Metal Man can, like, kill himself in one hit with Metal Blade. At least on that difficulty mode. I was actually surprised when I beat Woodman with one shot with the atomic fire, because I didn't remember that in easy mode it kills him in one shot. That's crazy, because like that just does not happen in any other Mega Man game. Maybe the exception being like the final boss of Mega Man 3 with Top Spin. But every other time, like you use your special weapon, even the weakness, it still takes a few hits.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
But in Mega Man 2, like some of the bosses literally die in one hit if you're using the right thing against them. But yeah, it was fun showing you like the big green dragon and how like just... Back then, Japan did not really think about, seizures and flashing lights.
Yeah, that was a bit harsh. Like, I don't even have a problem with seizure issues and stuff, but it was still like, oh my god, please stop flashing.
Yeah. Or like the room with the puzzle lights where you have like, you use exactly the right energy to beat it, or else you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, that was fucked up.
And then like seeing the final area with Dr. Wily jumping out of the UFO and he becomes an alien is like, whoa, imagine seeing that as a kid and being like, oh my god, this is so crazy. Yeah, Mega Man 2's fun. It has its issues. Like, I mean, all of them do, but I don't know. It's too hard for me to pick a favorite. If I had to pick a favorite, honestly, I'd probably pick 9. Because they like took all the lessons they learned from the old games and just Mega Man 9 is so good.
I mean, it would make sense, I guess, that they learned how to improve the quality of life of things.
Mega Man 10 is also so good, but I think Mega Man 9 is slightly better.
Why is that?
I don't know, just the weapons. Like, every weapon in Mega Man 9 feels good, where there's a few duds in Mega Man 10. And I guess the music overall is better in 9. Although, again, there's a lot of great music in 10 as well. And Mega Man 10 has that really funny moment when you're in the Wily Castle. You probably don't remember this, even though I've laughed my ass off at it. Okay, you remember in Mega Man 2 or in Mega Man 3 when you're at the castle and it has the little dots and then it draws like a little line? Mega Man 10 subverts that at the very end of Wily's castle. After you get to the skull or whatever, there's another one, kind of like in Mega Man 3. It's like, surprise, there's another skull, and it draws another line to it, right? In Mega Man 10, that happens, except the little line that it goes up off the screen, and it keeps going up and up and up and up. And I swear it goes up for like 5 seconds or so, just continuously. Because apparently this is connected to a space elevator.
Oh my god.
And it's just funny, like, suddenly you're hearing this, like, line drawing noise for so long because he's going way up into the space elevator, and the final stage is, like, up in space. And it doesn't sound funny when I describe it like that, but if you're a Mega Man fan and you play that, it was such a fun little surprise. Mega Man 9 also had a fun little surprise at the end where after you beat Wily, he's like, we've been through this so many times, and it like shows a little screenshot of every time Mega Man beats Wily. Oh yeah. Including Mega Man 7 and 8, which weren't 8-bit, but they made them 8-bit for this little section. Duh. So yeah, it is so good. I love those games.
Has Mega Man ever like just slapped Wily across the face like,
no,
fucking stop doing this?
No.
He should.
Nah, that's not Mega Man.
Oh.
Anyway, Give me a break from talking. What have you been up to?
Well, I decided to sort of take your advice, I guess, and try a different dice game that isn't Dicey Dungeons. Because I am, again, for probably like at least the second or third time, just getting a little tired of trying to beat the levels and losing and not beating them. And so I tried a new game, and it was Citizen Sleeper. And so far, so good, I guess. It's interesting because, like, you're kind of playing as... I guess you would count as, like, a half robot?
Like an android or a cyborg?
I guess okay, what would technically be the difference between a cyborg and an android? An android is, like, fully fake?
Yeah, like Data.
Okay, but a cyborg is, like, half and half?
Yeah.
I don't actually know what it would count as, because it's like, it seems to me that your mind or your consciousness has been placed in this new body, but I don't know if the body is technically all android or if there are bits like skin or something that still count as human or not, but it's not like your body. It's weird. Your mind has been placed in something else, in this new vessel, if you will. And I guess the main storyline is just that working for a corporation and you signed, I guess, paperwork or your life away, however you want to put it, and then you ran away with this body or something. I'll try not to get too much into the story this time because, like, I've only just started it. It's only been a couple of hours at most. And this is a game that is so enormous with the different choices you can make or the different luck that you have. And it can splinter off in so many different ways that I'm probably not going to end up seeing the whole story.
Yeah.
But it is interesting because, yes, to some extent it is a dice game because every day you wake up and you roll new die. But it's also a little bit more complicated because on the die there's, the numbers. But there's also, on top of that, there's also, and I don't completely understand this, like, you get the tutorial, but I'm gonna forget it after so much. You have white die, you have yellow die, and then you have white and yellow die. So it's like, the chances of good things happening obviously increase with the number of dots on the side of the die, but then the coloring is also like a second layer of that. And I think I generally get a concept, like a white die is going to roll worse than a yellow die. And so, like, the white and yellow is going to be half and half. And then there's also safe die rolls, risky die rolls, and danger die rolls. So it's like
Sounds like that game I played a while back.
Which one?
The Six-Sided Oracle game. I forget its full name.
Oh, okay.
They had risky dice, safe dice, and medium dice.
Yeah, so it's just like, it's all these different layers coming together, whereas like in Dicey Dungeon, it's just the numbers on the die.
Yeah. It's also more of a narrative game than just...
Oh yeah, it's way more story, and the main characters that you come across have like their little portrait, but it's just that one picture, and everything else you're reading about the story and having dialogue with them and choosing different dialogue options. Sometimes it's 2 options, sometimes it's 3, and of course those are all going to go in their own separate ways. And I'm not entirely sure if the stories from one character will ever, like, determine what happens with another character. I'm gonna guess no at this point so far, but who knows where the story will take me at some point. So I do like it. I like the reading aspect and trying to, like, imagine the actions that I'm taking with the character and how the other people are reacting to me. I do enjoy that.
An interactive novel in a way.
Yeah. And just like using my imagination and trying to see, like, I don't know, just thinking how I would interact with things. And do I get one of those choices when they give me choices to choose from? So I'll have to see how this goes after a few more hours, of course. I think... Now, I know while I was playing it, you had mentioned something to the effect of people say this is a hard game. And I can see where that's coming from. And as I was playing a little bit further, I felt like I could see where I was screwing up in the sense that I want to explore so much of the different characters and their stories that I was kind of like stretching myself too thin. And like at max, you only have 6 die per day. Or cycle, as they put it. So I was like using one here, using one there, but then like I'm not actually getting to the story parts because you have to do these certain die rolls multiple times to unlock the story behind it. And then I was like, the last thing before I quit playing the last time was I was like a small percentage away from literally dying. And I'm like, wait, I need to just concentrate on this one story part because it's going to give me enough money to get the shot that I need to increase my life again. Because otherwise I'm just going to literally fucking die. So I was assuming I wasn't going to make it. So I was making all these like more rash decisions, I guess you could say. Because I'm like, well, look, if I'm going to die anyways, and then I'll just be crazy with it and see what happens because I don't expect to live. And then I got the money I needed and I got to buy the shot I needed and then I injected myself and I lived for another day.
Did you?
It's weird.
Did you eventually die or?
No, I haven't died yet, but I came extremely close.
Okay. So when you go back, you're going to continue this story?
Yes.
Okay.
I did actually manage to make it, and maybe from here on out, I'll try to concentrate on one story thing at a time.
Yeah, not stretching yourself too thin.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like real life in a way.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. It's like try to focus on 1 or 2 things and not 5 at once, but I guess I'm just not that different in-game as I am in real life, and I just want a little taste of everything, and then it just goes haywire.
Yeah. Some games are nicer about that than others.
So I guess, like, if that counts as being a hard game, then yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, from what I've heard, that's basically the hard part of it, where it's just how you choose to spend your time and who gets to get the shot to live longer or whatever.
Basically.
Because, like, you want to help everybody, but you really can't. And you have to help yourself, too. And that's like real life sometimes. It's like, oh.
Am I going to learn anything from this? No, probably not.
Well, I mean, it is just a game, but. Well, I guess we'll see how it goes for you. It's fun. As long as you're having fun in any way, even if it is just in a narrative way, even if it's frustrating, like being able to claw at the story and get a little bit each time.
I mean, that's basically how Dicey Dungeon has been going.
Yeah, but I wouldn't consider Dicey Dungeon a story game.
No, but it has a story. Mm-hmm. Even if it's just a little bit. It has more story than Mega Man's.
I mean, yeah, because back then the stories were in, like, the manuals, basically. I think Mega Man 4 was the first game that had, like, any... Well, no. Did Mega Man 2 have a story in the beginning? No, it just had that cutscene. But Mega Man 4 has a little bit of a story in the beginning. But even that, it's like, no one's playing for that.
Well, I think I enjoy the narrative aspect more, so...
That's good.
Because it's like, I can get frustrated with narrative, but it's just different.
Was there a last thing we were going to talk about? I guess
I don't know.
Played a little bit more Terranigma. I'm not going to get too far into it, I guess. It's...
Yeah, I helped you a little bit by looking up the...
Yeah, I was getting really frustrated. For a while there, I thought, oh, you know what? I'm not going to play this game anymore. But the thing is, without being too spoilery, there's like a Lion King section. and you're helping Simba go through the the thing, and it was kind of cute and like the silly little music. And then you reach a boss and you're fighting the boss, and you kind of, something happens where it's basically Simba versus the boss, and you're just off screen hearing their fight, and you're like, oh, what's gonna happen? It was funny, actually. Anyway, eventually you finish that section of the game and you're moving on to the next. Like, oh, you revived the animals are now back in the world, the mammals. So next is like the humans. Go find where the humans are. You go to Tibet. And I got so frustrated there because there's these like blue crystal things that I just could not damage at all.
Oh, yeah. So that's when I came over and I'm like, well, I can just look it up and see if there's a thing to beat these with, which was also kind of hard because for all the enemy information that I could find, it's just like, this is the enemy, this is the spray, this is how much HP or whatever, or attack that they have. But like, I couldn't figure out, just going by those lists, how to kill them. So I had to actually go to a walkthrough, look up the area that you were in, and then read the walkthrough, and then it mentions something about a new weapon. I'm like, oh, okay, so this is how you get to the new weapon.
Yeah, the thing is, though, I didn't need the new weapon to beat those things.
You just needed the last weapon and forgot to equip it, right?
I didn't realize that after you finished the Lion King section, they gave you a new weapon. The game didn't make that super clear. So I was still using my old weapon, and that did like nothing. I would just hit the enemies and it would like ping. But if you equip the weapon that the lions give you, you can actually beat those things.
Wasn't there also the thing where you have to do a certain type of attack to hit some of them?
Certain attack, yeah, like you'll later on in that same area, you'll run into these little like masked dudes, and for some reason, if you hit them normally on the ground, it does nothing. You have to jump or do a dashing jump attack to damage them, which I don't know why it's like that, but whatever. It's not. I'm gonna be honest, like the combat in this game, I am not super loving.
But I wonder if that also happens to like be something that was in a manual that we just don't have access to.
Yeah, if you go into the menu screen, there's a section where it's like, oh, these are your attacks, and this attack is good against this type of thing. But it's still just not super fun to deal with that. I don't know. I do prefer their older games. I'm still gonna keep playing it. And I did get through that section and revived the humans. So now I'm like, the last time I played, I was in Tibet, and like the humans are back, and like you're seeing like all these Buddha statues and like all these monks and stuff. So I guess that's where the start of humanity in Terranigma is. It'll be interesting to see if they go into any religious stuff or not. They probably won't. I don't know. Maybe they will in a little bit, but...
Well, I mean, they've already got the Buddha statues, so it's sorta, kinda.
It's just, yeah, the combat is rough. And, like, if you don't... Especially if you don't even realize that the lions gave you a weapon, like, having to go through all those blue things without being able to kill them was a nightmare, because there's a lot of them. It's not, like, just one that you have to avoid. Like, in some screens, there's so many. So that was kind of... I guess my fault, but I'm also going to blame the game because I don't think they made it super clear. There's a lot in this game they don't make super clear, like the magic system. But whatever. I got through it, and then I beat the boss. And I'm not going to lie, I've been abusing my emulator rewind feature because I don't find the combat in this game fun. So
you just don't have time for that.
I just want to see what happens in the story. Like, I've heard so many good things about this game, but like... So far, a great majority of my time has been in dungeons and fighting stuff, and I feel like that's not super fun in this game. Whereas in a lot of other games, you know, going around in dungeons is fun. Like, I never minded that in Secret of Mana or in Soul Blazer or a lot of other games of this time, but in Terranigma, I'm just not finding it super fun, so I'm not going to be too much of a stickler about, you know, beating everything perfectly.
Well, if it helps, I still have the walkthrough on my phone thing, so if you need me to figure out something for you.
I'll probably be okay. It's just, It was just, that was the first time I really got into a thing where I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, I must be doing something wrong if I can't kill these enemies. And I was, because, yeah, I didn't have the right weapon equipped. The boss of that area was kind of also not super fun, but...
Do you want to explain that at all, or nah?
It started out interesting. There's like this weird, like, shadowy figure on the mountain, and he like turns into a Yeti at first, and then like into a wizard, and...
Oh, that boss. Okay, gotcha.
And then like into this, I don't know, it felt like a Castlevania vampire thing where he just splits into a bunch of bats, and it's just basically like a waiting game. It was whatever. I was just frustrated, and I'm like, I need to stop, because this is an old game too, where like there's not a lot of save points, and I'm like, if I don't beat this boss and get to a save point, I'm gonna have to do a lot of this over again, or use save states, which I haven't been doing yet. So I ran out of healing items, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna fucking use the rewind thing anytime I die, and just force beat the boss that way, because I just did not have the patience for this game at this point. We'll see if I get any better, or I don't know. The bosses have been really hit or miss. Like the first boss in the Amazon was pretty hard, but then the second boss at the birds was like incredibly easy, and then the boss with the Lion King was
not even you fighting.
Yeah, like there's a part where like, how do you damage this thing? Then once you figure out how to damage it, it was super easy. And then you have to wait for like a cutscene where you're not the one that really finishes the boss fight. It's really interesting. I don't know. The Lion King section was
a love-hate.
Yeah. It had some really funny music, and like when it was progressing, it was fun, but like there was a part where Simba runs off ahead of you, and you're like, okay, I gotta follow him. But then I went down the wrong path, and like basically went down the whole dungeon, got to a dead end, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? So I have to backtrack all the way back down and find out Simba didn't go down this left path. He went further ahead. So you had to go talk to Simba, and he's like, oh, hey, you caught up. Okay, let's continue now. And then you go back and up that full path. It's like, oh, come on, man.
Poor you. You got lost.
Anyway, I don't know, man. This game, it's a bit dated. A lot of people just seem to love this one more than the other Quintet games, but I don't know. Right now, it's not my favorite Quintet game, but I'm going to keep playing it, so whatever. We'll see. I'm sure we shouldn't end on such a downer note, but whatever.
Oh, it's fine. Every episode can't be super great.
I know, it's just hard because like I know a lot of people love this game, and I always feel like I don't ever want to shit on a game too much, because I mean, we all have our opinions, obviously, but like,
are you going to be disappointed if you like finish this game and it just doesn't get any better?
A little bit. I mean, I hope it gets better. I hope I fall in love with it. Right now, it just feels kind of like I'm going through the motions and just playing it to experience it rather than playing it because I want to. And there have been times where like, maybe I'll play Terranigma, and then I just think about it for a bit, and I'm like, oh gosh, I don't really want to play Terranigma. But I will keep playing it. I don't know. I just want to see what happens. I want to see why everyone loves this game. Because I know when I say that stuff about like other games, like I don't know, like Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy VI, like I would feel bad if somebody played through that and they like get just a little bit through and they're like, eh.
Kind of like how I do.
Yeah, you did that with Chrono Trigger. You got up to like the dragon tank, I think, when you were escaping the prison with Luca, and you're like, eh. And I mean, I get it. That's kind of a difficulty spike, but like it's like right after that where it gets so good. So, well, whatever. I don't know if it's right after Tibet where it gets so good in Terranigma. So I'm just gonna keep playing and see. But I feel like I haven't gotten to a point of the game where I'm like, whoa, it's finally so good. I'm so glad. So we'll see if that ever happens.
No, it's okay. You're gonna play 20 hours before this game gets good.
It's like, I wouldn't say that the game is bad. It's just like...
mediocre.
No, I wouldn't say that either. There's a lot of mediocre games on the Super Nintendo. It's just, I don't quite get the hype yet.
What if you never get the hype?
Then I guess I'll talk about that when that happens. We'll see. That'll surprise me, because I would say at this point in the playthrough for Illusion of Gaia, I already was like fully hooked. in Illusion of Gaia, I'd say, like, okay, there's this first section where you go to, like, the castle where you meet this girl, and turns out she's a princess, whatever. You go to the castle, be like, hey, she's back. And the king's like, you kidnapped her, and you get arrested.
Oh, no.
And it's like, okay, this is kind of cliche, whatever. But then, like, you escape and you run away, and you end up in, like, this land of the Inca. And, like, that's basically, like, the second big town of the game when you get to the Inca town. And it's like, that's when it gets really good to me. It's like, whoa, what is going on here? The music is so good. There's some really creepy imagery. And then everything that happens from there, it spirals. It's so good. Like, there's a part where you go, like, to this underwater castle with vampires. Or this one part where you're at the Great Wall of China and, like, your friend becomes a whale and swallows you or something. And there's this one part where you're going through this tunnel, this long underground tunnel with your friends. And it's so long that they're literally like, we are starving and dying down here. We are going to die down here. And this is just a bunch of children. And I'm playing this as a kid. And it was just like, oh my God, I'm 12 and this is so deep kind of thing. But it was so good. Like, that game hooked me so good. I haven't felt that for Terranigma yet. So we'll see. Now I'm almost kind of wanting to play Illusion of Gaia. There's another part where you get into a town with, like, child slaves and you're like... And then another part where there's, like, this flying continent where you have to, like, fix an airplane to get up to it. There's so much cool shit in Illusion of Gaia. And so far, Terranigma, I don't feel like... I guess the beginning was kind of cool. That moment where you step out of your village and you're in this weird world was kind of cool. And when you first get down to Earth and everything's just like a dusty, windy wasteland, that's kind of cool.
I wonder if maybe I could try that game and handle it a little bit longer than I could with Mega Man.
Which game?
The Illusion of Gaia, I guess you're talking about?
Maybe. It's an RPG, so, like, at least you level up and have healing items. There's definitely some parts of it that are kind of hard.
We could switch off if need be.
Yeah.
But at least, I don't know. It's weird, but, like, the platformers I played as a kid were not... Like, Kirby was not as hard as Mega Man.
If we do play...
Maybe I'm better with stories.
If we do play Illusion of Gaia, it would be funny, because then I could tell you another story about when I was a kid. You know what? Why don't we just end on this funny note?
Okay.
In Illusion of Gaia, you play as Will, and he has this little flute, right? He can play the flute to play music, but he also kind of uses it as a weapon. He whacks people with it, or whacks the enemies with it.
Bonk.
And as a kid, I really liked Illusion of Gaia, so I was like, oh, I'm pretending to be Will. And I would run around my backyard, and, you know, us kids in America, we would always... The schools would give us those plastic recorders, right?
Ugh, yeah.
So, like, everyone's playing Hot Cross Buns on their little plastic recorders. And meanwhile, I was running around my backyard pretending I was Will from Illusion of Gaia, like, just swinging it around like a weapon. And there's just, like... Yeah, I would do that as a kid. And eventually, like, I just accidentally just broke my recorder.
Well, that's not much of a surprise. Those things are brittle as hell.
Yeah, and then just, like, thinking about it, it's like, you know, Will probably would have also broken his flute if he was swinging it around like this.
It depends. I mean, there are pretty thick wood flutes. I could see those handling things better than some brittle plastic piece of shit.
Yeah, maybe. Well, on that funny note, rest in peace, old recorder. And rest in peace, this episode of GameRomp.
Oh God, we're dying. I was just thinking, like, your old plastic recorder is now microplastics.
I mean, so many things are. Anyway, well, that was another episode.
Yep, that's good for this week. And we love you, and we'll see you again next week.
Yep, and take care. Be good.
If you enjoy this, please leave comments and recommend us to other people's.
Anyway, see you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.